Ashley, I have a question for you. I want to ask you the same thing I asked Lenora. What are the most common mistakes that you see people make in the financial aid process for graduate school?
It wouldn't necessarily be with the FAFSA, completing the FAFSA itself. I think I would default back to responsible borrowing. I think that one of the biggest mistakes that I see graduate students make is the amount of refunds that they're getting that they don't necessarily need. And it's a habit that's easy to form and hard to stop. When you start kind of on that trajectory, you're living outside your means at this point most of the time. And given, you may be living, you may be actually living off of your refund checks, and you're paying rent and, it's groceries and stuff. But I've definitely seen otherwise as well. I would say responsible borrowing is probably the biggest thing at a graduate level, so that, you don't end up 2 years done with your program, 3 years down, and have all of these extra loans, and you have stuff to show for it, but all this debt, like, stuff is just stuff. It can go away at any minute, but that debt is going to be there. So just kind of having those hard conversations. And I think that even starts before undergrad, and as a parent, we were talking about this, I think, together at one point as well, making these decisions for your family. It's hard because kids want everything that kids want. And, it's hard to say no. I'm a parent. I get it. It's hard to say no, but, making sure that we're making the most responsible decision for everybody involved, so that everybody is on a level playing field after the fact. And there's not all of this substantial debt being followed behind anybody in the family. That's the last thing we want.
Ashley, it sounds like what Janai and her husband did. Be very clear what you will and what you won't do early.
Yeah.
And if your students are clear on that, I think, at that point, expectations are set. We have a few more questions.
I would agree.
While my child is nope. Do you provide additional funds for students with high GPAs while they're in college? So do they have more opportunities for funding?
So, there was a time when we would tell our children, do well, do well, do well. You're going to get a free ride to college. That just does not exist anymore. And I'm not saying that students don't get full rides, because they do. What we are seeing now, the GPAs are out of this world. I mean, students are making 4-point plus GPAs, a lot of them.
And that's common now.
That's common.
Yeah.
And so you have to stand out more than just the GPA. You've got to do some extraordinary things. You've got to be a leader. You've got to have formed some kind of club. You've got to have had some great leadership opportunities. It is not that you're automatically going to be guaranteed a full ride. Now, it depends on where you apply. So you may have to think about, do I want to come out of school debt-free and possibly go to a school that wasn't on the radar? And is this a school that's looking for somebody just like me? And so it takes a lot of work. It's time now to start filling out applications, admissions applications for next year. If you are just starting the school search now, you are behind the 8 ball. This should have started probably 9th grade. Start looking and doing research on what schools offer and what kind of scholarships are out there, so that you can make sure that by the time you get to be in your first semester of your senior year of high school, that you're prepared, because now it's a little bit late, because grades are going to count from your junior year, not your senior year, because we will start reading applications in a few weeks and for next fall. So doing well is absolutely a must. Once you're in school, are scholarships available? Absolutely. But is everybody going to get a scholarship? The answer is no. You can be a 4.0 student straight through and never get a dime. A lot of it will depend on your major. The sciences, the math, those are scholarships that are out there a lot. But if you're in sociology, philosophy, political science, there's not a lot of money. And depending on your family income, if your family income is high, your EFC is high, is it need-based? So you have to look, are scholarships need-based? If they're need-based and you have an EFC that's over the cost of attendance, you're not going to get it. And so it's really disheartening. But I would say that you have to look at every single scholarship. You need to start the research early. There is money out there, but it's not going to drop in your lap. For some students, it will. But for the majority of our students, you've got to search for the dollars.
And Ani and I are over here laughing just because of the session we had last night on scholarships. And you are saying the exact same buzzwords: leadership. Grades are important, but also community involvement.
Yes.
Schools are looking for really well-rounded children. Desiree last night talked about how competitive it is. Yeah. I can't tell you how many students I know who have a 4.0. Like, that's normal now, where when I was in school, I don't think maybe one or two people had
Absolutely.
one. Now, it is countless now. So it's competitive, and it's especially competitive right now for girls.
Yes.
So I think girls have to work harder right now, and that's something interesting to think about too. So where you go to school matters, what you study matters. You got to follow the money and see where that money is. Thank you for asking that question.
I have another question. Is the work study question on the FAFSA application, and is this money dependent upon the student maintaining a certain GPA?
So the question is on the FAFSA. It says, are you interested in work study? So most students will say yes. Work study has nothing to do with GPA, but work study, believe it or not, is need-based. So if you are not a need-based student, and that means that, so say the cost of attendance is $60,000. So that's tuition fees, room and board, and incidentals. But your family's income, or EFC, family contribution, is 70. You no longer are need-based because your family contribution is higher than the cost of attendance. That means you will not qualify for federal work study. It is a need-based program, so only need-based students, mostly students who get Pell or SEOG, are going to be eligible for work study because the funds don't last very long.
And so the graduate assistant that you talked about, Ashley, obviously I know that's not federally funded, but that's as close to work study that's available at the graduate level.
Yeah, correct. But it wouldn't be ESC based at all, though.
Right. Not
it's
based
just a
on
matter of
it's
applying,
not
but
need
yeah.
based at all. Okay.
So, Janai, what I would say, though, for that family who they don't qualify for federal work study, a lot of schools have what they call general college. So that means different departments on campus have in their budgets money to hire students on the undergraduate level. So if you are majoring in political science and say you want to stay close to your professors, you can go to the political science department and ask, do they hire any general college students? Because that student is not going to qualify for federal work study. So that's something that will not be based on anything other than that department having money and they're looking for students to work in their area.
So it sounds like the student needs to take some initiative.
Absolutely.
To see what opportunities are available.
Absolutely.
We have another question. Can you give your refund or return your refund? Can it go towards the loan balance?
So that if you want to do that, so the answer is yes. But if you're doing that, that already means that you've borrowed too much money. So if you want to do that, I will tell anybody, if you're returning money against your loan, make sure you put it back on your account and let the financial aid office know. Because if we send it back, it is reducing the principal on the loan. But say you get your refund and you want to send that $2,500 to the lender, that means you're making a payment. So that means if you borrowed 10, the principal is still 10. But if we send it back, it reduces that principal by $2,500.
Ashley, is it the same at the graduate level?
I would imagine so. I haven't had to deal with that necessarily personally because our department doesn't actually process it.
Okay.
But yes, I mean, if you want to return any of the funds, there's a form that we can have them complete, and we can send those back too. And again, this is why I like to have these conversations up front about borrowing responsibly, so that, like Lenora said, we're not getting in a situation where we're getting a $10,000 refund check. Like it's just not necessary. So I would definitely co-sign that.
Yeah, and I would say too, Janai, that goes for not just student loans, that goes for parent loans,
Plus loans
as well.
Okay.
So if a parent has taken out a plus loan and they now realize, I borrowed too much, I always tell them, let us send it back to the lender, because you got to realize parents are borrowing $30,000 and $40,000. So you want to reduce that principal as quickly as you can.
Breaks my heart when I hear you say that.
I had another question. I think I just want to make sure I'm understanding the question. She says, wondering if when my daughter goes away to college, will the college push her to continue to apply for the FAFSA, or does she have to remember to do it on her own?
That's a good question. So most schools, and I would say almost every school, when it's getting time for that October 1, there's so much media information going out on the campus. October 1, we can't push it enough. But understand that the student is still going to need their parents' signature, and they're going to need their parents' information.
Yeah.
So students are bombarded with information from the schools. Their emails are full, and they may see it and ignore it. So it's up to the parent. You have to know your student when you're sending them away to school. How responsible are they? And it's up to you to instill in them, listen, this is what we need to do. October 1. Parents should put a reminder on their phones or somewhere, knowing that October 1 is coming. So every year they're going to be alerted to it's time to do the FAFSA. And I would say make the alert at least 2 weeks in advance, so you've gotten all your documents, so that when October 1 comes at midnight, get it done.
The other thing that I want to advise, just based on a situation that I just recently learned about, David and I have a close family friend whose son is a freshman in college, went to school out of state. I reached out to his mom to say, hey, are you guys good with the FAFSA? And she said we had to redo it. She allowed her son to do it. This is her first child going to college. He didn't have a clue. He should not have been touching the FAFSA at all.
Absolutely.
And so she had to get back and get re-engaged. I have no idea how difficult that has to be to fix that. So I'm saying all of that to say, please don't turn that over to your children unless you know your child's skill set and capabilities. They're asking very specific information about tax returns, bank accounts, things like that. You want to make sure that you're leading that process, because most of our kids, I don't feel that are equipped, because they don't know our personal business that way. So please make sure that you're leading that. And to Lenora's point, whether it's at the undergrad or graduate level, you should be pulling your documents. You should be getting everything ready. Literally October 1st, you need to be applying. The FAFSA opens October 1st. You should be done that day. Go ahead and put that time in your calendar. Get familiar with the form. Pull all your documents and stuff that you need, and get ready to apply 10-1.
Yes.
Any more questions, Ani?
Not at the moment.
So anything, I can't believe we've already been here an hour. I'm like, man, the time is going by. Ashley, anything in particular you think that we haven't covered at the graduate level that you think is really important that we share with our Thank Me Later community?
I just want to reiterate, one, what Lenora said about doing your research. I know it takes time. I know we have busy schedules, and I know a lot of times at grad school you're balancing a lot, but taking the time to do it really can, it just benefits you all around. But in that, making sure that you're reaching out to your HR department. those are conversations that need to be had. Any type of military, tuition reimbursement programs, veterans benefits. I mean, these are things that are out there that we don't want to overlook that can help us with our funding or help our families. I think that's kind of what I would like to highlight the most, and just making sure that we take the time to put the work in so that we can get back what we're looking for.
Lenora, I had one more question for you. I think a lot of parents don't realize that they can file an appeal when it comes to their award. What did you call it? Their notification now. So when should you file an appeal?
So it depends on what the appeal is for.
Okay.
So there's all kind of appeals, being independent, whether it's not enough money. So you've got that award notification. You should file it immediately. Please reconsider my son's application or award notification. It's not enough money. And what's the reason? And there could be an appeal, parents now out of work. So when they do the FAFSA, it's 2 years prior income. Now they're out of work and they're filling out the FAFSA, but the income is based on prior year income. But now we need to consider the income that they currently have or don't have.
So for the October 1st, what tax return will be people using?
So they will be using 2020.
So it's for fall 2022, but you're going to be using your 2020 tax return.
Correct.
Okay.
Which means you have to file your 2020 tax return.
And so back to what are the common mistakes? Not filing a tax return. And now it's time for your son or daughter to go to college, and you haven't filed that tax return yet. And that will hold up their award notification. Nothing will happen. Unless, of course, you have raised this brilliant student and their application shines so brightly and they are offered a full ride. And that will not be based on their FAFSA.
Yeah, that's not based on need.
That's
That's
not
based on
yes.
when we talked about GPA, leadership, and all those other
community service, all of those things that possibly a student could be eligible to receive.
Okay, I had two more that just came in, and I think the answer is yes to the first one, but just making sure, assuming the application process is all electronic at this point. No more paper.
No more paper.
Okay, which is a good thing.
Yes.
If I apply October 1st, how long will it take to process if there are discrepancies? I applied on October 18th, and my information wasn't processed until December and missed out on the early funds.
So it depends on each school. So if we go by the date, so we will say we'll process October 1 to October 15th. We're not looking to see if there's a mistake or not. We let you know once we get to it. We're not checking for discrepancies at that point. But some schools will not process until they've received tax returns, until they've received verification worksheets. What we found that is a disservice to those students who apply October 1st. So we want to go ahead and get those students processed, get their aid on. Now, if we get the tax return and there is a discrepancy, we will make the corrections. And hopefully it will not change their aid. So mainly what you're looking at, what might change is their Pell, their SEOG. Maybe Pell goes away, or maybe Pell gets increased. So, but every school is going to be different. Most schools wait to get all documents in before they award. So say you do it October 1, but that school doesn't do any awarding until later. The other thing is you also have to be admitted. So, say October 1, you've got your FAFSA in, but you don't get admitted until April 1. We cannot do your awarding till that time. We don't award any student who's not admitted to the college. And I'm sure most schools, if not all, do that because you're not going to have money out there in the air for a student who is not admitted to the college. So that could be a problem. You did it October 1, but it didn't get done until December. It could be that you didn't get admitted into the college until later. And so that is a problem for students. So if you're going to apply to college, I would say apply early notification. So at least you will know before Christmas if you've been admitted to the college. So your FAFSA then is done. You can then get your admissions letter. And we send out admissions letters along with their notification letters. So if they get admitted in December, they will have their notification letter as well.
Do you do early admittance at the graduate level too, Ashley? Is that common?
You said at the grad level?
Yes.
So I guess it would depend on each college, how their college processes it. But I mean, definitely in the College of Business, there are students who are getting accepted early if they have gone through the process. So that's definitely out there as well for grad school.
Okay. Thank you. Any final words, Lenora, as we begin to wrap up?
So I would say if you are a senior in high school, don't give up. Get busy.
You have some work to do.
You have some work to do. If you are the parent of a student who's in middle school, elementary school, start the process now. Start thinking about your son or daughter. What are their interests? What do they like? Think about the schools where you might like them to go and really work with them to be the very best student that they can be. Start them being interested in community service, giving back when they're a young person. Believe it or not, there are scholarships that will give full rides for community service. So, but you want your student to have a passion for community service, not just doing it because they're getting the money. So you have to start early, but if you haven't started and you're behind the 8 ball, you need to get started because applications have opened up for fall 2022.
Mm-hmm. And Ani, any final words from you as a previous student, as a mother, anything that you're thinking about?
My child's interviewing already, so I'm just preparing these skills, getting her ready. But
your 10-year-old.
My 10-year-old. Really what I hear mostly today is applying for the FAFSA is a step in the process, nothing more. It's a step. Really the real work is in your research and finding those scholarship dollars and opportunities within the institution. This is just a step to make sure you can get that funding. And so I think if we change that perspective of thinking financial aid is going to be the result of how I go to school, then maybe we're having a different mindset on that. So that's what I took away from today.
I have a couple things. First, at the graduate level, I think it's important how strategic you are about where you pick what school that you go to. Part of it is cost, but I know I picked my graduate school because I know it took me 1 year and I was trying to save money. Mm-hmm. We already had a child and I was on a super tight budget. So I knew I had to get in and get out. So be very strategic. Like Ani, I did get my tuition paid for graduate school, but I was very intentional about that. I was not paying for it. So I believe that there's some options out there. So you want to make sure that student loans are not your only option. You have to put in the work to make sure you can get that degree paid for. For the undergrad level, just as a parent, David and I were very clear we were not paying for our children to go to school. And we put our kids through private school and we were like, you know what? You got to figure this out. The degree is not going to say David Janai and Trevor Thornton. It's your degree. It's not our degree. And I think establishing that very early made our children be very active and participating in the process. They went to the schools they went to not because of our love for them, because that's where they got money to go to school. It was strictly a financial decision. So my son did not go to A&T because I went there. That's where he went because that's where he got money to go. You know, I tell a story. I wanted him to go to Hampton. They weren't writing the check. He didn't end up at Hampton.
Right.
You know? So again, it's a financial decision. It's not an emotional decision, Mom. So I don't want you to think it's going to change the course of your child's entire life if they don't end up at the school. You know, I see that a lot. I taught at Spelman for several years, and I know people were giving up their firstborn for their daughters to go to school
right.
there.
And they still are.
And they said,
And now they're on their second and third. and Ani, you said something that, Janai, you said something that was really important. If they don't get to go to the school of their choice because of financial reasons, you have to be very honest with your children.
absolutely.
And parents have to stop thinking this is the only place their kids can go. Spelman's wonderful. I think every African American female should matriculate at Spelman because of what Spelman offers. But I'm realistic in saying that everybody can't go to Spelman. And when I look at the debt that African American families are in because of the choice they make in terms of their students' education, when I see a $200,000 debt for undergraduate school for parents, I wonder when will they be able to retire, because they're not only paying that, they're paying mortgages, they're paying cars. And this is before their students have even gotten to graduate school. So I say let's make good financial decisions, not only for our children, but for our own lives.
Yeah.
And we teach them well
Save yourself.
when
Yeah.
we say no. No is an answer.
Right. No, I appreciate you sharing that, particularly coming from your position. You know, as long as you've been on Spelman's campus,
Right.
running a financial aid office, and I have heard you tell people you cannot afford to be here.
Yes.
You know, and because it's the truth.
It's the truth.
Yep. So please, let's all make really good financial decisions. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope this has been helpful. I've learned a lot. And thank you for joining the community. This is going to be, we will post this in the Thank Me Later community. It's probably going to take us about a week and a half to do that. But let other people know about this, because they will be able to join our community and watch this later. So again, please continue to engage with us. We have additional programming through the end of the month. I'm really excited about the next 2 sessions we have. One in particular, Tiana, who is our community manager, she was a Gates Millennial Scholar.
Oh, wonderful.
So she's going to talk about how she actually got that scholarship, and several others with
Okay.
no family support at all.
Wow.
So we want to make sure that people know that that's possible,
Absolutely.
and how she navigated that process and got a full ride to Howard,
Whoa, wonderful.
going through zero debt. You know, isn't that
It's the
something?
best way to go to
I
school.
know, I know. We want you to know that it's possible. So definitely want you to please continue to engage with us. Let us know what topics you want us to cover. And follow us on social media at TML Money and at Janai Thornton. And we will have information about Ashley and Lenora within the community. Thank you all. Thank you, Lenora.
Thank you.
And
It's
thank you,
been-
Ashley, for being so generous with your time. It means so much. We really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and have a great evening.
Thank you.